Howdy! This is a video about Rodion Romanovich from Limbus Company. She's not my favorite sinner, but I do quite enjoy her. Her life is awful, and her constant personal failings are like looking in a mirror. I'm a particular fan of her and Gregor's relationship, leading to one of my favorite ships, even if it will never happen, ever. None of the sinners will date, I need to give up. But no theoretical relationships matter, as for my purposes, Roja is alone, her own person with her own mistakes and regrets. This video is about a Roja ID constantly thwarted from being number one. That's right, you read the title. This video is not about any old Roja ID. This video is about the Roja ID. Lobotomy Ego, the sword sharpened with tears Rodion, also known as Knight of the Spare Roja, or Koja for short. Now I understand that calling her the Roja ID kind of undermines the point of her being below others, but I'm mostly considering that outside of Roja's IDs themselves, so to speak. Regardless, first we need some setup. What is a Knight of Despair? Why do they exist? Everyone who's played Lobotomy in the library can recall the three main magical girls, made up of the Queen of Hatred, Knight of Despair, and King of Greed. Of these three, Queen is by far the most popular, due to her design and proclivities. Not only is she relatable, but she is also the most obviously magical girl-esque of the trio. King of Greed is also notable, as she is ostensibly the leader of the group, with the title King, the final fight of the three in the library, and the only one with an Aleph weapon. Even if it is kinda shit. Knight of Despair, despite being my favorite, is still behind the other two. She's just a knight compared to the king and the queen. Right there in the naming scheme, she's like tertiary. Flash forward from Lobotomy to July of 2025. Queen of Hatred, as popular as she's ever been, is getting a Walpurgisnacht ID for Don Quixote. Now this might come as a surprise, but Don Quixote is quite clearly the fan favorite sinner, and to be given an ID for quite possibly the most popular VoV abnormality in Lobotomy is a recipe for some absurd fan reaction. The video announcing her and Roja is currently the most watched Walpurgisnacht announcement, 400,000 views higher than the next most seen for the Full Stop duo. Something tells me this wasn't just good timing. Dawn clearly got top billing as well. Not only was that Walpurgis called Hatred and Despair, but she appears first in the video, gets a cute little animation with Queen, has a larger kit, and has an entire personal VoV ego, something that can't be said for any other ID. Knight of the Spare Roja was clearly the secondary release slot, and maybe possibly could have been like a 2-star if they kept doing that. Regardless, everyone had their eyes on Dawn, and none on Roja, like usual, more or less. Before actually discussing the state they were in after they released, I think it's pertinent to talk about narrative associated with Koja, and how it works with Rodion in general. Her ID story is about her no longer being assigned to the Knight of Despair's blessing recipient, and is now swamped with work for other abnormalities. Roja, not quite fully adjusted to the Knight's ego equipment, had fooled herself into believing that she had a special relationship with the Knight, and had her blessing basically stolen by another employee. Then, the scene skips forward to after the employee died, which, as a side note, is confusing, because if you played Lobotomy, you know that the blessing prevents you from working with any other abnormality and gives you a defense buff, so it's shocking they died, but I guess there's an excuse to get the Knight to go rampaging, so Roja had a cool image, and like the fight in the Walpurgisnacht defense, but it's also possible that Roja like killed the blessing guy, but that's not stated or even like implied, so I don't know, fucking whatever. After the Knight begins to rampage, we see Roja talking to the Knight like she was actually a friend who betrayed her, which just plays further into Roja's delusions. This ID tale is pretty standard for Rodion in terms of playing into her inferiority complex, but this one has her explicitly being secondary to someone in their own mind, despite the manager clearly thinking that she was more capable than the blessed employee, which is honestly really fitting for this ID. Finally, Queen Dawn and Knight Roja are released, and they are cracked as fuck. But Roja is just so much better than Dawn. It is hilarious. Dawn isn't bad by any means, but she can't contribute well to either rupture or sinking because she inflicts no count. However, as a charge ID, she's great, but charge isn't, really. Dawn can be good in envy teams, but Middle Dawn is also really good in them and is debatably better in the modern day envy teams. Dawn's AoE is really good, and so is her damage, but for any status team, she's either not helping or in case of her main two statuses, actively a detriment to maintaining a stack. Roja, on the other hand, is absolutely insane. In her negative SP form, which, compared to Dawn, is really easy to access and she can basically be in it the entire fight, she is massively count positive for sinking. Not only that, but her potency in both negative and positive forms is plenty as well. Her ridiculous single target damage output, with offense level increases, damage modifiers, passive damage up, and power up, and being a negative point ID, just devours enemies. She can also tank with her +5 defense level, and her positive form getting effectively 4 protection for fun. She can be slotted into any team aside from maybe Rupture, and work as a generalist ID to do crazy damage and or destroy enemy SP. I haven't even brought up Rhyme Shank, which was a crazy sinking ego since the release of the game, with a passive on Koja that all but guarantees the enemy will lose 3 attack power and 3 speed every turn. She is crazy, and it's just crazy that she's not even the most important ID in a sinking team. What the fuck? Unfortunately for Roja, sinking's biggest problem has always been enemies with SP who take no actual damage from their entire status. Thus was born Yi Song in his 2 forms to grant those feeble sinking players the ability to kill Lei Hang in under 6 business days. Spice Brush and Solomon Yi Song can both translate the sinking stack into real damage, with Sinking Deluge and Butterfly respectively. They both have different ideal teams for their max damage, either focusing on high count or a high number of sinking activations. Whichever one you want to use doesn't really matter all that much, but it means that unless Roja gets a Sinking Deluge eco, she will never be the most important sinking ID. Sargi. Now, while she's not the most important, she is still probably the best ID on a sinking team. The problem, though, is that she never got a chance to be the best ID, despite being so close in my opinion. Because, by that Walpurgisnacht, it was already way too late. Mao Faust is very strong. Everyone knows this. Her damage is incredible. She can theoretically shoot off 3 skill 3-2s in a single turn. She can still very easily shoot off 2 without Lord Lu even being there. She requires some team building to get her full potential, unlike Roja, but that doesn't matter. She can tank, deal massive damage, greatly support Rupture, be slotted into any Resonance team due to her goofy amount of haste she gets for doing fucking anything. Pretty much the only 2 things that Roja has on Mouse is negative coin clashing and status infliction. But the amount of Rupture Mao Faust inflicts is still more valuable on her own team. Knight of Despair Roja will never be the best, but that's just the most Rodion thing in the world. This ID is still one of the best in the entire game. In her story, she ignored the fact she was being considered more capable to take on abnormalities, and only considered that she was being taken away from her special connection with the Knight of Despair, which is, unrelated to Knight of Despair, more or less the thing I did for the entire video. Regardless, I wanted to make a video talking about her, because I felt like she wasn't ever discussed in the running of the best IDs in the game, mostly because of Mao Faust. Sorry. And I thought that was a shame. I love Knight of Despair Roja. I love Knight of Despair, I love her design, I love sinking, I love how much damage she does, and I love negative coin characters. And she's everything I could ever want, and I just hope someone who doesn't have her will just gobble her up this next upcoming Walpurgisnacht. Anyway, that's all for today. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you were here this long, then please, pretty please, watch the video I have on screen or in the description. My friend makes them, and they're really good, and he's so much better of an editor than I am, so please watch them. Please, pretty please. This is my first time making a video, and I was doing it mostly for fun, but I still do hope that you found enjoyment out of it. So, have a good one. Bye-bye!